At 35 years old, Suk-joong was a simple farmer with a simple mind. To the rest of the world, he was just a country bumpkin who knew how to raise cows and giggle foolishly. His world was small and gray, a life lived without color, until the day a woman named Unha arrived in his village like a sudden burst of light. He was instantly captivated. The smile playing on her lips, the way her hair danced in the wind, Suk-joong was convinced he had just seen an angel fall from the sky. That very night, while celebrating his newfound inspiration at a karaoke bar with friends, fate intervened. He looked up, and there she was again.
이 아저씨 되게 순수하네. 귀엽다. 나 아저씨 애인 할까?
예?
근데 아저씨 원래 그렇게 말이 없어요? 내 별로 마음에 안 드나? 나 갈까봐.
아니요.
In that moment, we see Suk-joong's world clearly. For him, love is a blank page, pure and simple. But Unha's life is anything but. The karaoke bar isn't even her main job. She's a waitress at a coffee shop that requires her to deliver more than just drinks. She provides special services to men who expect them. None of that matters to Suk-joong. In his eyes, she is a treasure, completely one of a kind. And when his own friends start to gossip and disrespect her, he shuts them down immediately.
돈만 많이 주면은 걔 새끼가 정말 무섭다.
One day, in a clumsy attempt to give Unha a break from her exhausting job, Suk-joong does the only thing he can think of. He orders a coffee delivery from her, for her. But Unha completely misreads his innocent gesture. In her world, no man was ever just kind. She was convinced he was just like all the others, hiding his true intentions behind a simpleton's smile, expecting the transaction to go the usual way. She sighs, takes off her jacket, and lies down on the bed behind him, ready to get it over with. He just sits there, stirring his coffee, the frantic clinking of the spoon echoing the wild, unfamiliar rhythm of his own heart. In that moment of profound, respectful innocence, something in their dynamic shifts forever, and our simple farmer decides he's done just admiring her from afar. Suk-joong knows nothing of romance. All he knows is his farm. So every single day, he offers Unha two things: perfect rose and a bottle of the freshest milk from his favorite cow. Each time she accepts his small gift, a goofy, triumphant grin spreads across his face. But the moment he's gone, she pours the milk down the drain. Because in her world, nothing given freely by a man ever came without a price. To get a glimpse of her every day, Suk-joong starts showing up at the coffee shop, happily wiping down the front sign until it gleams. Touched by his persistence, Unha offers him her own handkerchief to wipe his brow. For Suk-joong, this small piece of fabric becomes a precious treasure, a secret love token. One day, they talk about love. Unha is blunt. She doesn't like men, she says, and has zero interest in marriage, having seen firsthand the insincerity they are capable of. But her cynical words don't discourage him. In fact, they have the opposite effect. They make Suk-joong even more determined to be the one man who could show her what real, sincere happiness felt like. Word of his relentless pursuit eventually reaches his mother, who is horrified. A fallen woman, like Unha, was the last person a family would ever accept. But to Suk-joong, her past was irrelevant. In his heart, she was simply a good person. Undeterred, he asks her to a movie, and as the film plays on screen, his eyes never once leave her face.
아저씨.
예.
형 안 봐요?
예.
On the way home, Suk-joong tried to convince Unha to quit her job. But Unha seemed uncomfortable with the suggestion.
아무튼 고마워서 그런 거니까 오해하지 마요. 그리고 앞으로 티켓 좀 끊지 마요.
은하 씨 그냥 쉬시라고.
아저씨, 내 스타일 아니야.
Suk-joong didn't give up. He understood now. Her rejection wasn't about him. It was about her circumstances. In her world, survival came first. Kindness was a luxury she couldn't afford. So, he did the only thing a simple farmer could do. He went to the bank and withdrew his entire life savings, years of hard work condensed into a single passbook. He found her on the staircase of a motel and offered it to her. Not as payment, but as a promise. A promise of a different life.
나 은하 씨 사랑한단 말이에요.
사랑한다고? 아직 그렇게 사랑이 쉬워? 어?
은하 씨 뭐가 그렇게 복잡한데요? 예? 난 그냥 하루 왼쪽에 은하 씨 생각뿐이 안 나고 맛있는 거 먹어도 은하 씨 생각나고 이쁜 것만 봐도 은하 씨 생각나고 하늘 봐도 은하 씨 생각나는데.
After stammering for a moment, Suk-joong finally said the 3 words he had kept in his heart. I love you. For Unha, hearing those words was a secret dream come true. However, her past had convinced her that she was unworthy of such pure, simple love. She couldn't bring herself to accept it. That evening, he waited for her outside the karaoke bar. He apologized and simply offered her a ride home on his motorcycle. As they rode through the quiet night, he played her favorite music. A small, thoughtful gesture that spoke louder than words ever could. Unha's heart was an iceberg, frozen over by a lifetime of hurt. But Suk-joong's patient, unconditional affection was like a steady sun, slowly melting the ice the next morning. For the first time, she took out the bottle of milk he'd left for her. Hesitantly, she took a sip. It no longer tasted like an obligation, it tasted like hope. However, their budding connection was about to be put to the test. Desperate for her son to marry a proper woman, Suk-joong's mother forced him on a blind date. In a calculatedly cruel move, she arranged for the meeting to happen at the one place she knew Unha would see it all, her own coffee shop. Unha's boss, seeing Suk-joong in the coffee shop, happily assumes that he's her boyfriend. But just then, Unha has to leave to make a delivery. As she gets on her scooter, she glances over at Suk-joong. But this time, he looks away, ashamed to meet her eyes. That single, avoided gaze sends Unha's mind spiraling. Distracted and heartbroken, she arrives at the customer's location and for the first time, refuses his advances. Her rejection ignites the man's fury. In a violent rage, he grabs a heavy bottle and smashes it over her head. The world goes dark. When she wakes up, the angry customer is gone. Lying beside her on the hospital bed, holding her hand, is Suk-joong. The man who had been too ashamed to look at her just a few hours ago was now here, a look of fierce devotion on his face. And in that moment, seeing his simple, worried expression, a genuine, unguarded smile spreads across Unha's face. She was no longer alone. Stumbling over his words, Suk-joong desperately tries to explain that the blind date meant nothing, that he had been forced into it, that she was the only one.
은하 씨, 세상에서 제일 행복하게 해줄게요. 내가 지켜줄게요. 정말이에요, 은하 씨. 사랑해요, 은하 씨. 나랑 결혼해 주세요.
At their wedding, Suk-joong sang his heart out, as overjoyed as a child who had just been given the entire world. Seeing her son's profound happiness, even his mother's heart softened, and she finally accepted Unha into the family. They began a sweet, idyllic life on the farm. It was a world away from the noise and the pain Unha had always known. One day, Suk-joong carried her on his back through the fields to a secret, dreamlike grove of cherry blossom trees. In his eyes, surrounded by a shower of pink petals, she wasn't the runaway waitress with a troubled past. She was a princess, and he was finally home.
미칠 만큼 죽을 만큼
언제까지?
언제까지? 죽을 때까지 아니야. 죽어서도 계속.
오빠 무슨 일 있어도 내 옆에 있어줄 거지? 죽을 때까지 나만 사랑할 거지?
그럼.
But they had both forgotten fate's cruelest trick. It often waits until you are at your happiest to deliver its most devastating blow. That blow came in the form of a man slurping instant noodles. Unha's violent ex-husband. He had found her. One day, a threatening phone call sends Unha spiraling back into the past. She tried so hard to escape. He extorts her for money, assaults her in a motel room, and reveals that her name isn't even Unha. Then, he takes his cruelty one step further. He finds Suk-joong and calmly informs the farmer that he is Unha's legal husband. Suk-joong refuses to believe him until the man produces a photo, undeniable proof of a past she had kept hidden. But for Suk-joong, this revelation didn't change a single thing. He knew he couldn't live a single day without her. So he did what he always did. He sacrificed, he sold his prized milk cow, the symbol of his livelihood, and took the cash to her ex-husband. He knew it was blackmail, but he didn't care. He signed the man's twisted agreement, paying him off with one simple demand: never, ever bother Unha again.
그리고 아이씨가 행복하라고 안 해도 우리 충분히 행복해. 아이씨가 왔다 간 거 우리 은하가 절대 모르게 해줘야 돼요. 알겠어요?
He took the signed agreement to their secret grove and buried it beneath the cherry blossom trees, hoping to bury her past along with it. On the long walk home, the weight of her secret settled on him. It was the first real shock his simple heart had ever known. But as he thought about it, one simple truth remained. No matter who she was before, she was his wife now. That night, he held her even tighter as they slept, trying to shield her from a world that had only ever hurt her. But the next day, a far more terrible blow landed. A doctor from the local health clinic found him at the farm. He explained that due to a mandatory screening related to her previous work, Unha had been tested. The results had come back. She had AIDS. The word, AIDS, was an atomic bomb that detonated in Suk-joong's quiet world, leveling everything he thought he knew. It was a shock so profound, it left him completely hollowed out. That evening, he sat at the dinner table, staring at the beautiful meal she had prepared for him. But he couldn't speak. He couldn't eat. He couldn't even look at her. Overwhelmed by a grief too massive to process, he stood up, packed a small bag, and walked out the door, leaving his sunshine all alone.
혹시 그동안 관계할 때 콘돔 착용했어요? 아휴, 전옥분 씨도 아직 모르니까 두 분 빨리 보건소로 같이 좀 나오세요. 에?
Left alone in the house, Unha came to her own heartbreaking conclusion. It was about her past. She assumed her ex-husband's arrival had finally made Suk-joong see her as the world saw her. Tainted. Her heart broke, knowing that he had even sold his beloved cow for her, only to be disgusted by her. Meanwhile, Suk-joong was at the clinic, getting his own blood tested. The results negative. He was not infected. He sat in the doctor's office, grappling with the impossible question of how to tell the woman he loved that she was dying, because the doctor said there was no cure. That night, as a heavy rain poured from the sky, Suk-joong stood outside their home, unable to bring himself to walk through the door. The bag of fruit he'd bought for her slipped from his grasp, spilling across the wet ground. As he desperately tried to gather the scattered pieces, they kept slipping through his fingers. A perfect, agonizing metaphor for the happiness he was trying so desperately to hold on to. Finally, drenched and defeated, he walked inside. The house was empty, save for a table beautifully set with his favorite food. It was a message from Unha.
사랑하는 석중 오빠, 나의 못난 과거 때문에 목장이도 팔고 괴로워하는 오빠의 얼굴을 도저히 볼 수가 없어. 속이려고 속인 건 절대 아니었어. 나 오빠를 진정 사랑했어요. 그것만은 진심이야. 내가 돈은 꼭 갚을게. 안녕.
Suk-joong's world imploded. He ran out into the pouring rain, screaming her name into the empty darkness. But she was long gone. Overcome with guilt for the money she felt he had wasted on her, Unha had vanished. His only clue was a money order she'd left. He raced to the address, a bustling dock, hoping to find a sender's address, any sign of where she had gone. There was nothing. His last sliver of hope was extinguished. He stood on the pier, shouting her name to the vast, indifferent ocean. In that moment, the disease, the judgment, the stigma, none of it mattered. The only thing he feared was a life without his Unha. To earn the money to repay him, Unha had returned to the one life she knew how to survive in, completely unaware of the illness growing inside her. And back on the farm, Suk-joong began to self-destruct. The man who never drank was now never sober. He neglected the farm, his health, himself. Without his sunshine, he was a walking ghost, simply waiting to fade away. Then one night, the phone rang. It was news about Unha. Unknowingly infectious, she had been arrested under a law for deliberately spreading disease. He followed the news to the local police station. And there, he finally saw her again. He never imagined they would reunite like this, separated by shame. Unha's case became a national media sensation. The story of the AIDS waitress ignited a firestorm of panic and judgment. In prison, she was an outcast, feared and despised by the other inmates. Desperate to help her, Suk-joong agreed to a television interview, naively hoping it would garner public sympathy. Instead, it put his entire family under a microscope. He became infamous. His brother berated him, and his mother could do nothing but weep in her room, watching her family be publicly shamed. The news sent a shockwave of terror through their small community. Because Unha was diagnosed, hundreds of local men who had ever ordered from the coffee shop were now forced to get tested. The town turned on her, their fear curdling into a venomous, collective hatred. Later, his mother comes to the prison to visit Unha, not with comfort, but with a cold, desperate plea. She asks Unha how she could have done this to her son. But Unha has no answers. She has no idea how she got infected herself. Then came the final, crushing ultimatum, delivered by Suk-joong's brother. "If you truly love my brother," he said, "you will disappear from his life forever." The same family that had once welcomed her now saw her as a monster, a curse on their name. It was a stark, brutal display of society's unconscious violence, where fear turns good people cruel. So she did what they asked. She refused all of Suk-joong's visits, leaving him heartbroken on the other side of the glass. The loneliness in her cell was immense, a crushing weight. All she wanted was to see his face, to explain, to feel his simple, unwavering love one more time. Gazing at her own pale reflection, she felt like she was already beginning to waste away. But then, in a strange, beautiful moment of delirium, she imagines a single cherry blossom petal drifting down into her cell. And just for a moment, she is no longer in a prison. She is back in their secret grove, with him.
무슨 일이 있어도 내 옆에 있어줄 거지? 죽을 때까지 나만 사랑할 거지?
그럼 죽어서도 계속 사랑할 거야.
진짜?
네, 진짜지.
At the very same moment, Suk-joong is alone in their secret grove, surrounded by the now bare cherry trees. He closes his eyes, and it's as if their memories are connected across the distance. A shared, dreamlike vision. A single, silent tear escapes his eye. He raced back to the prison, desperate to see her. He pleaded with the guards, but they refused. The rejection, they told him, came directly from Unha. Pressured by his family, she had officially blocked all of his visits. Alone in her cell, Unha tapes a small, treasured photo of them to the wall. To combat the crushing loneliness, she softly begins to sing the song, the one they first sang together at the karaoke bar. And at home, as if hearing her across the miles, Suk-joong puts in an old home video. On the screen, a younger, happier version of them is singing that exact same song. It's his only solace. But his mother sees him watching. Filled with a furious, misguided desperation to cure her son of this love, she storms in, rips the videotape from the player, and destroys it with her bare hands, shattering his last tangible piece of her.
써불러.
하지마.
어차피 내게
하지 말라고.
뭐라는 거야 이놈아.
하지마. 하지 말라고. 하지마. 하지마 좀. 하지마. 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 나야.
Watching her own son wither away in grief, a painful truth dawned on Suk-joong's mother. The love she had tried so hard to destroy was the only thing keeping him alive. But it was too late. In a final, desperate act, Suk-joong declared that he would rather die with Unha than live without her. And with those words, he drank a bottle of deadly herbicide. He was rushed to the hospital just in time to save his life, but not without a permanent cost. The poison had scorched his vocal cords, leaving him unable to speak. At the same time, Unha was brought before the court to hear her fate. The verdict was swift and unforgiving. She was found guilty.
자신이 에이즈에 감염된 사실을 몰랐다고 주장하지만 인정될 수 없고 1년간 윤락행위를 한 점은 인정된다. 그러므로 중상해죄 윤락행위 방지법 위반죄를 적용하여 피고인을 징역 2년 6월에 처한다.
As Suk-joong recovered, his mother came to his hospital. Her fight was over. Seeing the lengths her son was willing to go to for this love, she finally surrendered. She promised she would never interfere in his life again. All she wanted now was for him to live. After a long and lonely time in prison, a letter arrived for Unha. It was from him. She finally gathered the courage to say yes to his request for a visit. But Unha still tried to stay away from him, still feeling inferior and remembering Suk-joong's mother's message to her.
왜였어? 나 원래 그런 년이야. 보다시피 나 멀쩡해. 그러니까 나 신경 쓰지 마. 오빠 안 만났으면 오빠 정말 꼴도 보기 싫어. 재수없어 가. 오빠 때문에 내 인생 망쳤어. 오빠 안 만났으면 재수없게 오빠 만나서 오빠 아니더라도 나 충분히 힘드니까 빨리 가. 잘 가. 그동안 고마웠고 이제 진짜 오지 마.
Unaware of his injury, Unha mistakes his silence for hesitation. Her defenses go up. She acts cold and distant, telling him to leave her alone. Just then, the bell rings, signaling the end of the visit. As she stands to leave, Suk-joong urgently presses a piece of paper against the glass. It's the agreement he made with her ex-husband.
누가 이딴 거 보여달랬어? 오빠 내가 밉지도 않아? 더럽지도 않냐고. 나 벌레야 벌레. 오빠 병을 보면 어떡하려 그래? 사람들이 다 금방 죽을 거래. 왜 대답 안 해? 말 좀 해봐, 김석중!
The bell chimes again, the final call. This time, she turns to walk away for good. That's when Suk-joong breaks. He slams his fists against the glass, again and again, a raw, desperate pounding. He opens his mouth and tries to scream her name, but all that comes out is a strangled, agonizing cry, the sound of a man with no voice left, trying to tear down the world with his bare hands just to reach her.
목소리 왜 그래? 왜 그래, 오빠? 목소리 왜 그래? 왜 그래? 어떻게 된 거야? 목소리 왜 그래? 오빠! 오빠 미안해. 오빠 미안해. 오빠 나도 사랑해. 오빠 사랑해. 오빠 내려와요. 왜 이래? 오빠 내려와.
Does this kind of love still exist? A love without calculation, a love that expects nothing in return. In our world, I love you can feel cheap. But Suk-joong's love redefined the weight of those words. It's a love that carries a silent promise. I have seen your darkest parts, and I am not afraid. I know the road ahead is pain, but I will walk it with you. What this story teaches us is simple. True love isn't making promises on a sunny day. It's holding an umbrella for someone in a storm, even if you both get soaked. Tell the story with heart. Tell the story with sincerity. I'm Pixie Low journeying with you so we both may grow. See you in the next video.